What's your actual bottleneck? Not what do you think it is, but what is it really? Because a lot of the times we might think that our issue, like the thing that's holding our business back from growing, is leads or the lead quality or our service delivery or expertise or our employees or whatever it is. We might think it's that, but is it really? Or are we just telling ourselves that it is this because that's what we want to work on? Or maybe we're good at this thing, and so we don't want to admit that it is that. So we want to point in other directions. And because those things are probably harder for us to master, or they're just not in our skill set yet, we're putting off actually working on it. Or maybe we're just ignoring it altogether and pretending that we don't see it in the corner. How can we actually figure out what the real bottleneck is? Well, in reality, it just takes being really, really honest with ourselves and walking through the process. What part of the business is the one that is giving us the most friction? Sometimes business owners will think that it's the number of leads that they're getting, the lead quality. If I could just get more leads and then get some sales, then I'd have more money to fund more operations and service delivery. And so then I could just improve everything if I just get more leads. And that's partially true, but a lot of the times business owners will actually find that once they start getting some leads, like they'll really focus on the marketing efforts for a little while. And then they start getting some contracts in, they get some payments, and then they get busy on actually delivering the service that they just sold. And so now they aren't able to put the same attention that they had on the marketing. Then what does that lead to? Less leads again. Then they finish the first projects and then they have to pick it back up. And so they think that they just need more leads and they'll have enough cash to then hire somebody. But you can probably see where I'm going with this, in that really the bottleneck in this is not the leads. It's, in a way, it's kind of both. But the part that we have to start with really is the service delivery if we're already good at the marketing ourselves. Because it doesn't make sense to go out and hire somebody to do marketing for us when we already know how to do the marketing because you just got these leads as soon as you needed them. It makes more sense to work on the service delivery and get that really efficient. So maybe we don't even need to start with hiring somebody. Maybe we can just make our processes more efficient so that we have more free time to then be able to allocate on the marketing. There is also a way that we could make both sides more efficient at the same time. There's the Pareto principle, which a lot of people are familiar with now, but just the basics of it is that essentially 80% of your results come from 20% of the inputs that you give. So could you look at both your service delivery as well as your marketing? Like, for example, maybe you have the majority of your leads coming through organic SEO or from paid advertising, whatever. And here you are spending a bunch of time on all these different marketing channels to get all these leads from different places, but still this one is outperforming the rest or gets you the highest quality leads. Maybe just stop wasting your time for a while on the other ones. Just focus on what's working well and just milk that one channel for as much as you can get from it. And the same thing on the service delivery. Maybe you make the majority of your money from a certain type of work, but you offer all these other services because at random times people have needed those. And so now you have this full menu of things, but really the majority of the money still comes from the top ones. So just probably focus on those and things are going to be much simpler and you're going to waste less time. So you could start with this sort of simplification or like minimalist way of doing it if you don't want to, or you're not able to yet hire somebody to backfill some of the service delivery. And that's great, right? But this process can kind of continue or carry through into every aspect of the business, of the identification of bottlenecks. You would have to keep analyzing things, but I don't really think that you want to spend that much time on like getting super, super granular. You just want to find like the quick wins, the easy ones, like I said about, cutting all these things off your menu, identifying the main marketing channels. For example, it wasn't that long ago where I was working with a company and they were getting tons and tons of leads because that's what we were supplying for them. And they were talking about the quality. But in reality, the lead quality it can vary a bit over time, but the overall quality was pretty similar, right? But the real problem turned out to be, and we were able to experiment with this to kind of figure it out, it was really the sales team and their processes. They were competent, but the processes were the main things that were holding them back. So it wouldn't matter, because I tried turning up the lead volume tremendously, and sales wouldn't really move much. So was it the lead quality? Maybe. It could have been the lead quality, but it didn't seem much different. Could it have been the lead quantity? Maybe. But the same problem then keeps resurfacing, that something else is also throttling the results back. So maybe the lead quality was an issue. Maybe the lead quality could be better. I mean, unless the lead is just buying from you without you having to talk to them at all, with no communications at all, then you can always make an argument that the lead quality could be better. You could pre-qualify them more. You can prepare them more. But excluding that type of a scenario, if you don't have the back end also working and you don't fix that, you don't fix the leaks in the bucket, then that ends up to be the true bottleneck. Now, sometimes people don't want to fix the actual bottleneck. Why is that? Well, it could just be that they don't want to handle that. They don't want to do it because they don't have the skill set, which means, summarizing it means they don't want to fix that because it's probably hard. We can't forget that's why we're in this in the first place, why we're in business, is to solve hard problems. That's why people pay us. If the problems aren't that hard to solve, they don't pay very much for them. Think about it also as an opportunity that this problem is hard for everyone who does your kind of business. So this is the chance that you have to set yourself apart from the rest of the pack, that you are not afraid to solve the problems that everyone finds difficult. Because what does it take to build a really good sales team? A lot of hiring, a lot of uncomfortable conversations when people aren't performing well. You can't just pass the buck and say, no, well, it's marketing's fault, or it's the branding team's fault. They should have branded the company better, or it's the pricing. We can't fix the pricing. Sure, you can always blame somebody else, but that doesn't help you actually get ahead and perform better. Or maybe your sales team is amazing, and maybe the marketing is the bottleneck. But you need to kind of take this approach. Like, I'm always self-criticizing my marketing. How could my marketing be better? How could I make my lead quality better? Like right now, I'm working on the marketing for SaleTend, and we had a bunch of people sign up, but they didn't stay after their free trial. So what does that mean? Well, first, are the leads qualified? I tried reviewing the customer profiles that we are having sign up, and they were all pretty much in our target demographic, except for like a few people that I think signed up because of the YouTube channel. They just wanted to check out the software that we're making, which is fine. But the majority of the people were the right type of demographic that we want to shoot for. So were they qualified? Yes. But the quantity wasn't that many because the leads were very expensive. So what does that tell me as somebody trying to identify the bottleneck? Well, one, I do need to improve the quantity, because I don't want to be paying $100 for a lead for a free trial. That can be pretty expensive. Now, could it be worth it in the long run based on the lifetime value of a CRM customer? Yeah, it could probably be worth it, but that is not sustainable for me at the moment. I do not have venture capital backing that will just fund me millions of dollars to invest for another 5 years before I need to turn a profit. I'm not in that comfortable of a situation. I shouldn't say comfortable, but you get what I mean. I'm not in that situation. But what was another bottleneck that I identified? Well, I wasn't happy with the conversion rate of the landing page. So that means that I have to improve the conversion rate of the landing page so that even when I get 100 people to it, I want to shoot for at least 10 people, which is a very high conversion rate. But this is for a free trial. So it's not as though I'm asking them to pay for anything right up front. They don't even have to enter their credit card when they're first filling it out. So I need to work on the conversion rate of the landing page, and I can do things like that through design, better conversion copywriting, a little bit more social proof, And there are many different ways that you can do that. It could have been back on the ad. Like if they saw back on the ad, and I'm not going to make up figures, but for example, let's say on the ad it said 10,000 businesses just like yours are using SailTend. Maybe that would have translated to a better conversion rate on the page, just because they would have already had that social proof in advance. But I don't have that figure yet because we're just getting started with our marketing, of course. So I have to figure out what statistics or social proof can I get that will build it up so that the page has a higher conversion rate, in addition to things that are actually on the page. See, when people are looking at your business, they're looking at the whole thing. You might think, oh, well, they just go to the page. But if you think about how you actually approach working with a new business, you're probably checking them up on Instagram, probably taking a look at them, their reviews on Yelp or whatever review platform you like to use for that type of business. So the whole brand plays into every aspect. And then even once they got into the account, obviously we didn't do a good enough job of retaining them. So one thing that we're working on right now is an onboarding sequence that will help them to get set up. Because even though I, who has worked with technology so much for many years, it's easy for me to figure out how to use SailTend and sign up. I have to realize it's not just for me, right? I'm not the main user. I do use it, but I am not the target of the application. So I have to make it easy enough for everybody else to just get started. My goal is for you to be able to set up in 5 minutes, to have a fully functioning CRM system within 5 minutes with no one-on-one onboarding process that you have to talk to a person or get a demo or something like that. I just want to make it so easy that anybody can do it. Any business owner can just sign up really easily, really quickly. And so I need to give them a little bit more information. In order to identify all of these issues, I have to admit it's all my fault. I made these things, or I hired the people to make these things and then I approved them. And is it easy making really good copywriting for a landing page? No. It's easy to write something. It's really hard to write the perfect word combinations that convince and influence the person to trust you and be willing to actually spend their time, because people hate wasting time. Influence them to spend their time on figuring out your platform and then also pay money for it. You're asking for a lot. And keep in mind, this is from cold traffic. So it's just like walking up to somebody and then asking them for $100 when you've never seen them before. I get it's a lot to ask for. That's why we have to really figure out the process, the bottlenecks. Because once you can solve those bottlenecks, where's the upper limit? The limits are really high for this type of company, so that's why I'm really excited about it. But in any business, you're going to have these kinds of bottlenecks. And so if you can just stick it out and be really honest with yourself about what is the actual problem. Deep down, you probably already know what the real problem is, and you just don't want to handle it because it's really hard. Because if it wasn't hard, you would have probably already worked on it, right? Like designers, they'll have these amazing, beautiful portfolios, right? And then they'll never do any marketing to actually get it in front of people. So they know that their bottleneck is their marketing, right? They know it's not the design. They know it's not, oh, if I just had a better pricing plan on my page. No, it doesn't matter, because nobody is ever going to see the page to be convinced or not convinced whether it's good or not. Just like if you're a real estate agent, are you getting in front of enough people? And then are you qualifying them enough? Where is the problem? You don't want to just advertise for the sake of advertising and then say, oh, well, I guess nobody liked my ad. No, you have to figure out what is the actual problem. Did the ad get in front of enough people? That's step one. Step two, did the ad get in front of enough of the right people? That's step two. And then the third would be, did I convince enough of the right people to proceed to the next step? We have to look at every single one of the steps. And see, this takes time. It's difficult. It requires a lot of humility to be able to admit, I really thought that this was going to work. It didn't work. It sucked. And So I had to change it completely. And then I thought it would work now, still doesn't work that good. And then I have to fix it again. And it's just this endless cycle of continually fixing things. Like, I remember about 2 years ago, I set up, I had this big, wonderful idea of setting up a chatbot for a company's incoming requests in order to process leads a little bit faster, just to qualify them. And then once they were qualified, then they could be handed off to the sales team. And while this seemed like a good idea, there ended up being many cons. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't have worked with more modification, but for example, it actually caused the sales staff to then pay less attention to leads whenever a bot sequence wouldn't run properly, and then the person would get a little bit frustrated. Now, whenever a bot has a mistake, that's fine. Like, there are going to be mistakes that happen, but when the mistakes happen, are we jumping on it to fix it and keep the customer satisfied so that they are not growing unhappy with our brand? Because it's okay if problems happen, but do you fix them properly and do you fix them quickly? That's what people care about a lot. And unfortunately, because it seemed like the majority of the time the bot was handling things just fine, we started upsetting a good amount of people because it wasn't being handled properly whenever the mistakes would happen. And so then we switched back to fully manual processes, and people were complaining a lot less. The sales started to increase back to its former level. And so you can't just do things and then just never go back and admit that they were wrong. And it was my idea, I fully admit that. But can could we have fit the bot into certain places and not others to keep a sort of human touch to the process? Sure, yeah. But you have to be at least willing to admit that your solution didn't work, and then you need to adjust again. See, a business, and I learned a lot of this from programming, right? Like systems thinking, that everything has to work in a certain way with other parts for the system as a whole to function properly. And you can't do that if you don't revisit the different components and be honest about what really needs to be fixed. And sometimes it can just seem really easy to, go with that initial, like the first thing I mentioned, that blanket solution. I just need more leads. Do you need more leads, or do you need more highly qualified leads? It's probably more highly qualified leads, because if you just, like a billboard is just everybody. And there's a reason why those things are viewed as quite overpriced nowadays, because they just get you a little bit of everybody, but you don't really want everybody. You want people that are specifically interested in your service. So that's why targeted marketing and funnels and landing page sequences and email nurturing sequences, they can work so well to get you those only highly qualified people and then move on to the next step. Or the solution could be to work more on the back end processes. Or maybe you need to work on just the pricing or the model as a whole. Like, you're getting these deals done, but it still just feels like you don't have enough at the end of the day. That's a sign of a deeper systemic issue. But those things are usually pretty easy to fix. Like a pricing thing is not that hard to change, right? It's a number. But you have to be willing to admit when you had an initial assumption and it changes as time goes on. Because you could have been right in the first place, and then things change. So you just have to keep being willing to be wrong, be willing to take the blame, and just fix it. Just get it working. Because the sooner you have a business that works with very little friction, the sooner you can double your revenue, triple your revenue, 10x your revenue, whatever it is, that stops becoming the limiting factor. Like if the back-end fulfillment is working amazingly, then all you have to do is marketing. Essentially, you're just going to see this really strong correlation with another marketing dollar that whatever lead you get in, you make a ton of money off of it, and the client is really happy. That means your service delivery must be working really well. But if you're just not getting enough of those people in the first place, well, then you need to visit this side. And then another problem, and maybe I'll speak about this a little bit more in depth in another video, is just focusing on that one bottleneck at a time to really solve it properly. You don't want to do like a band-aid solution that just solves it for this week or this month, or, well, I'm just going to work extra hard. I'm going to work more hours this month. You can do that, but that's not the real solution. That's today's solution. So you really need to think from a long-term perspective, what's going to solve this problem for as long as possible. There's not going to be any permanent solutions because everything changes. But for as long as I can see, what's going to work the best. This is the thing that I really love talking about, like systems thinking and optimizing, making things more efficient, fixing processes. And, I don't have any problem admitting that a page that I wrote is wrong, or the ad doesn't convert enough, or maybe we need more ad creative, or the service delivery sucks and we're just wasting so much time on all these unnecessary parts. I have no problem admitting any of that, because what I care about most is getting to the end result where the business is operating as much like a machine as possible, just because to me, that is a beautiful system where you can just put in a very simple input, you get a beautiful output, and people are happy with the results throughout the whole system. That is just, to me, it's like an art, or a very creative and beautiful, like it's like symmetry that you see in nature and whatnot. It's just, it's so inspiring to me. So that's always my goal. Of course, you can never take things too far, like efficiency, 100% efficiency is never truly achievable. But if you can make it the goal, then things can go pretty well. I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff, as maybe you're able to tell. But I think that's enough for today. Thank you guys for listening, but that's all. Bye.